Just got to refresh here.
Ha! I got it.
You got it.
I got it.
All right, hold on. All right. We are live. Welcome, everybody, to Beyond the Grave Radio with Haunted Salem, where the dead educate the living. We are live on YouTube. I am your host, Christina Corsetti, and we are here with my co-host, Roger Bell. Roger.
Hello.
And tonight we have a special guest, Rob Gutro. Rob is an author, medium, and ghost hunter in his spare time who wrote 2 books about his experiences. He is able to hear, feel, sense, and communicate with earthbound ghosts and spirits who have passed on. He wrote the books Pet in the Afterlife, Ghosts and Spirits, and Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead, to teach others how ghosts and spirits communicate and give hope about the afterlife. So, Rob, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Christina. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you for being here. Glad you're here. Now, we both actually were reading your bio, and you are an author, medium, and ghost investigator, and a scientist as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm a meteorologist, actually.
That is awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
That's very
I'm
cool.
actually a trained storm chaser, so.
I'm one of the safe storm chasers. I stay behind a computer, and I'm in a safe place.
Right. Well, I hope when I'm chasing one that I'm in a safe place, but you never know, because they can turn in a heartbeat. But
Oh, yeah, especially out where you live.
oh yeah.
Yes.
We don't get that around here. Well, I find you very interesting, Rob, as a person, and from what I was reading, you really put a lot of effort and dedication into what you're doing to help the living and the deceased. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, in addition to being a meteorologist, which is what I do to make a living, I also do dog rescue, by the way. My husband and I do dog rescue for the 2 breeds
That's
that we have.
awesome. So
we try and save a lot of dogs, do fosters and transports and home visits and all that stuff too. We love dogs on both sides. So as you mentioned, I've written 4 books. I just published Pets in the Afterlife 2 that just came out on Valentine's Day.
Nice.
And I'm republishing my first book, Ghosts and Spirits, because I've updated it for 2016. So we go on paranormal investigations. I belong to Inspired Ghost Tracking in Maryland, and we do the group itself is pretty large. There are over 100 people in there, but there's a core group that goes on private investigations. And by private investigations, we mean into people's homes and help them with their paranormal problems.
Okay. All right. One of your books actually was very interesting to me, and that was Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead. What lessons can you discuss with us tonight about what you have learned? Is there anything you can tell us?
Sure. There were actually quite a few lessons that I've learned from talking to the dead, and the most important lesson was to embrace the time that we have here and make sure that we treat everybody equally. Everybody is the same. It doesn't matter what race, creed, color, religion, non-religion, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we never really learn that until it's our time to pass.
Exactly. So it's too late, right?
Unless we have a dog, because we all know that dogs embody unconditional love, right? So yeah. We can learn from them. But that is the big important lesson that I learned. Another thing that came from the other side is that they want forgiveness for whatever they've done wrong, and oftentimes you'll find that people need forgiveness in order to pass. They decide to stay earthbound as a ghost until they can get that forgiveness. And my aunt is one such person. It took me 25 years to convince my Italian mother to let her to forgive her. My mother used to say Italians invented the word vendetta, so don't count on me forgiving her in a short period of time. It took 25 years.
Oh, wow.
So forgiveness is important. Another thing too is that they don't want us to feel guilty about anything, and that's one of the most important questions that I get from people when I do talks. They say that they feel guilty sometimes if they're not by the side of their loved one when they pass. And actually, their loved one chooses to pass either alone or surrounded by people. It's an individual choice.
Sure.
It's the same thing with our pets. So if you're feeling guilty about not being with your mother, grandfather, grandmother, whatever, when they passed, don't, because they wanted to pass when you weren't there. And oftentimes that's because they know that you would probably never get over their passing if you actually physically saw them pass at that time.
I can relate. I was there when my mother passed.
And you've never forgotten it.
No.
And you
that
won't get over it.
Was something I'll never forget.
Now the pets, do they go to the same afterlife as we do?
They sure do. They're all waiting for us. I've seen them in the light. Actually, when my dad passed, two of my family dogs and my dog Buzz, who inspired me to write Pets in the Afterlife, they were all sitting, waiting in the light for my dad with his human relatives on the other side. It was the most incredible thing. It just really made me cry.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we have something to look forward to, seeing our past relatives as well as our pets.
There'll be a lot of wagging tails on the other side.
All right. Well, tonight we have some haunted places that we're going to talk about and discuss. The first one we have is how do you pronounce that? Montpelier Mansion.
Montpelier.
Montpelier.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this mansion is in Laurel, Maryland. It's a very popular house back in the 1700s. The mansion sits on a 70-acre reserve with a dramatic, sprawling landscape. It is a prime example of Gregorian architecture. The mansion was originally owned by Major Thomas Snowden and his wife Anne, who entertained such distinguished guests as Abigail Adams and George Washington. So the ghosts of our founding fathers are said to walk the grounds. The house was often visited by George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams, and their ghost has been seen many times over the years. So what can you tell us about this haunted mansion?
Well, I had one experience when I walked into this mansion, and that was a female ghost, and it was an intelligent haunt. She actually let me know that she was there because she followed me. Oftentimes, whenever I'm in the presence of a ghost or a spirit, I get a headache in the back of my head. That's because they give me energy overload. So when I walked in, I felt that, and I felt a cold spot. And as a scientist, I've kind of figured out that the reason we have cold spots when we run into ghosts is that what they do is they take the energy of motion from the atmosphere, and fast-moving molecules of air are warm air. Slower moving molecules of air are cooler air.
Oh, wow.
So they take that energy, and that's why we get cold spots whenever a ghost is around. So she followed me from room to room.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
I would you mentioned the founding fathers.
Yes.
Oftentimes I find that whenever they've been to a place that affected them, they leave kind of a thumbprint, like a residual energy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I typically find that ghosts typically haunt usually one place that they're very familiar with or they loved when they're in life, and they can be seen. Images of them can be seen in other places where they made a big impression on them. So they leave an emotional thumbprint, if you will.
And that's where the residual comes from.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Did you encounter any of them during your investigation of the house and grounds with the Inspired Ghost Tracking team?
We did not. Actually, I didn't see any of the founding fathers. It was just that one woman that was dressed in 18th century clothing.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit about her? What you saw?
It was actually more of a sensation that I actually really didn't see her, although sometimes I do see them, and actually sometimes I see them well enough where I actually sketch them out, and I bring a notebook with me whenever I go on an investigation, and I typically sketch them out, and Margaret Ehrlich, who manages Inspired Ghost Tracking, usually takes them to the homeowner, or in this case, the docent, and shows them. And so far, I've been batting 1,000.
Oh, wow.
They've said that everyone I've drawn is almost exactly what the ghost looks like that walks around in their house. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
It's a good thing I could sketch Roger. Otherwise, everybody would say, "Hey, I saw that stick figure."
All right. Now, do you think she's an intelligent haunt or a residual impression?
That's a good question. I do think she's an intelligent haunt because she seemed to follow me from room to room.
Okay, so she knew you were there, and that's where the intelligent comes from.
Yes. Intelligent haunts, for the folks listening and watching, are ghosts that are able to interact and answer questions, or give us some kind of signs, as opposed to residual haunts, which are basically like emotional thumbprints, like a thumbprint on the glass of a window.
Okay.
And you can see that when the sun comes through it. And it just means that somebody felt so emotional in a place that they left a little energy behind. And oftentimes you may find that same kind of energy when you buy an antique.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in an antique store and felt like you either really wanted something or didn't want to touch something else?
I love antiques. Well, don't you have to have the sensitive abilities to actually have that feeling?
Well, we all do to a point.
I think everybody has that ability, just don't everybody know how to use it.
Yeah, or tuned into it. But intuition plays a role in that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, Christina, and Roger, let me ask you: if you've ever walked into a crowded room, have you ever felt like there's one person that you just really don't want to talk to?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I have. I don't know if I get that.
Actually, if I walk into a really crowded room, it's kind of like inside my head is like just full of crap, and I'm going, shut up.
Or Christina, since you said you may not have felt that way about somebody, if you walk into a room and there's somebody you actually feel like you do want to talk to?
I do get those intuitions.
Okay, so what you're actually doing is you're sensing the energy that those people are emitting. So in a sense, you and Roger are doing the same thing as mediums do with a different kind of energy.
I gotcha.
So you are sensitive.
Yeah, I'm told I have more abilities than I'm aware of. I just need to become in tune to them.
Well, Roger, you need to take care of that.
I have this thing about crowds of people. You know, it's they can be on the other side of the room talking, and you shouldn't even hear them, but I hear them in my head, and it's like, God, would they just shut up?
Yeah. You gotta learn to switch it off, on and off, Roger.
Yeah.
You know, because you seem to have a lot of abilities that from talking with you, you know what I mean, that you are aware of things.
So, yeah, and I can't say that I like them all.
Yeah.
You know, some I don't mind, and some I'm like, God, I wish they'd go away.
Usually people feel that way by Friday afternoon.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And the crowd thing is one of them. God, I wish they'd just go away.
All right, so with this mansion, Montpelier, is that what it's called?
Montpelier.
Montpelier.
Yes.
Gotcha. Tell me about the male ghost you met there.
Well, in Montpelier, there was it was more of a sensation in Montpelier than an actual ghost.
Okay.
Just a feeling that someone was there. So it really didn't give me any details. Some of the other mansions that we're going to talk about later, I did get more details.
Sure.
The time that I had gone to Montpelier Mansion in Maryland was the time when I was really first developing my abilities. Although my first experience was back in 1976 when my grandfather passed and he showed up in front of me. 6 months after he died.
Wow.
But those abilities really didn't come to the forefront until 2005, when my puppy passed, Buzz, and he inspired me to write my first book because he was such a great canine communicator from the afterlife. So even today, I have a lot to learn. I call myself a medium rare because I'm not well done. So there's things that I need to learn still, but that was actually my visit to Montpelier was when I was actually first really getting in tune with spirits and ghosts.
Now I'm kind of curious to get off the subject for a minute. I'm kind of curious. Like, do you understand what animals are saying or thinking?
I do, and oftentimes, usually when I talk about pets in the afterlife in my talks, I put it this way: pets are just like human children. They have the intelligence of a 3 to 5 year old child. We, just like human kids, we take them to school. We're happy when they learn how to go to the bathroom. We're happy when they learn how to play well with others. We take them to the doctor. They know words. They know commands. They can read our emotions. They have emotions of their own. Yes. They have their own personalities. The only thing they don't do is grow up and marry someone you hate and move away.
There you go. Good for them.
So they actually send me pictures of things. I actually did I answered an email from somebody who lost their dog, and their dog actually described this gentleman who had he had just white hair around the fringes of his head. He had glasses on. He had a big nose, and he always wore a checkered shirt and blue pants. And the dog actually sees this. So whatever the dog sees, they can tell me what they see. And that's so I wrote it down. And I sent it to her, and she said, "Oh my God, my grandfather only wore checkered shirts and blue pants."
Wow.
So she knew that her grandfather was with her dog on the other side.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Roger, you want to take us, tell us a little bit about this this mansion?
This is Bel Air.
Yes, Montpelier.
It's built in 1745 for Governor Samuel Ogle and his wife, Ann Tasker Ogle. The mansion later became one of the homes of William Woodward, noted American horseman of the 20th century. So, Rob, what can you tell us about this haunted mansion and its history?
Well, the Bel Air mansion is it's a pretty famous mansion in Bowie, Maryland, and they actually bred a lot of horses there. They have a very famous stable, and they've bred some award-winning horses. I think some have won the Triple Crown from Bel Air.
Oh, cool.
So that goes back a ways, though. And that came later. That, of course, came into the later 1800s. Now it's an historic mansion, and it's open to the public, and they have afternoon teas, they have speakers, they give tours, and all kinds of things. So it's very well preserved, and it's got a nice garden in the back, and I'll be telling you what else they have in the back as we go on.
I love the old mansions, though. I think they're really neat.
There's so much energy in there, like residual energy, even if there isn't a ghost in them, that you can just basically touch a wall and close your eyes, and then you can feel what happened in that particular room.
Those old houses have a sort of a spirit energy of their own, you know? I mean, not like a ghost spirit, you know what I'm saying? But they have their own, they absorb the life that goes on.
Yes, yeah, they absorb the emotions of the people that are in there.
They put off an energy of their own, you know, and I think that's fascinating, actually.
No,
so, can you tell us who William Woodward is and what his role is in the history there?
Actually, you know, I didn't get into William Woodward, so I actually couldn't tell you about William Woodward, but I can tell you about the ghost that occupies the Bel Air mansion.
Sure.
You've got one up on me there with William Woodward. He probably one of the people that actually raised the some of the horses that actually won the Triple Crown. So, um, so what I will tell you is my first experience walking in there, and again, this was another early experience. My husband and I went in there as a Christmas candlelight service, and they open their mansion at Christmas, and they put candles up, and they have music playing. They have a string orchestra come in and play Christmas carols, and then of course at the end they have Santa Claus drive up in a fire truck. So
That's
um,
awesome.
it's pretty cool. So long story short, when we walked in the door of the mansion, I remember this very distinctly. I got a headache in the back of my head, and I said, "Oh my gosh, there's somebody here." And as we walked through the mansion, I kept feeling a little girl, and she kept basically tugging me and telling me to go upstairs. Um, and this is when I was first developing my ability. So I always laugh at this story because I told my now husband, and he used to roll his eyes and say, "Oh my gosh, whatever. Go talk to the historian. I think you're imagining things, whatever." So, so I,
Did you
the
go
little
upstairs?
I did. I went upstairs, and in the room the little girl wanted me to go to, it was decorated as a little girl's room.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, okay. And she said, "This is my room. I like to play here." So I went downstairs and I talked to the docent, and I said, "I have a crazy question to ask you. You may think it's crazy, but did a little girl pass away here?" And I said, "About 3 years old." And she said, "Why do you ask?" And so I told her. And she said, "As a matter of fact, yes, her name is Anna.
Nice.
She's buried in the backyard."
That's
Wow.
validation.
It was quite a validation. What was even more amazing is that we got to walk into the backyard the next day, of course, when the sun was up. And sure enough, at the very, very back of the property, before you get to the stables, there was a tiny little cemetery, and there was a gravestone with Anna Ogle's name on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she's still there, and she wants to play.
Wow, that'd be cool.
It's pretty amazing. Actually, I went back a second time with my mom, who has the ability, but she was always afraid to use it. And Anna was telling me all kinds of things. And my mother said, "I want to hear. I want to hear." And I said, "Well, you're afraid." And she said, "Yeah, well, of course I'm afraid. I don't want to talk to dead people, but I want to hear it."
She didn't want to talk to them. She just wanted to hear them.
Right. So Anna still walks around. I know she loved the mansion. She was very young when she died, and I guess she just likes greeting the people that come in the mansion, and she's not. She doesn't want to cross over.
Really?
Sometimes they stay behind for that
For
reason.
many reasons, yeah, for many reasons.
Sure.
With this Bel Air mansion, strange happenings have been reported to occur at night. Shadow figures have been seen moving inside the house as well and surrounding areas. Strange orbs of light moving in the window. Footsteps heard on joining porches, as well as sudden temperature changes. So I guess there is a lot going on there.
Yeah, I think she gets around, that little girl. There is another report. Another person had told me that's been in the mansion several times during different events that they keep seeing a Civil War soldier.
Okay.
Out of the corner of their eye. I have not run into the soldier, but the person that told me that said that they've seen them several times. So they're very well maybe another entity in there. But Anna seems to want my attention every time I go in there, so I give it to her.
That's awesome. Now, what do you think makes these mansions haunted? Is it because they're so old and the imprints they hold over the years?
Well, certainly that's what accounts for the residual hauntings.
Yeah.
All of the energy, the emotional energy left behind.
With the residual, they don't know you're there, right?
Right. It's not an interactive ghost. It's
Okay.
basically just you put your hand on your computer screen and and leave it there and then look look at it. And that's a residual handprint.
Now, with residual, do they not know they're dead and they just keep playing the same thing in their life as they were? Is that how it works?
No,
It's like a recording.
Like a recording, like an imprint, like
Over and over and over.
But they don't know they're dead, though, right?
It's really not an intelligent entity, so it can't communicate with you. An intelligent haunt is one that actually can communicate, and they usually do know that they're dead.
Okay.
And they need help. Oftentimes, I think, Roger, you could probably attest to this, is when you get EVPs, a lot of times you'll get "help me"
Yeah.
from a ghost. So
usually I'm standing right next to you. That's what I get on my EVPs.
That's scary.
Oh, jeez.
A residual spirit, Christina, is not always necessarily a real spirit. It's just a recording that's etched into the fabric. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
They're not real spirits, and that's why they don't acknowledge you and they don't, communicate with you.
Well, they got to be real, don't you think? Oh, no, they're not real. I see what you're saying.
It's just energy.
It's just energy.
Leftover energy, yeah.
It's an energy that's recorded in the fabric of time. It's just going to play over and over and over. The real spirit is long gone from there.
I get you. Okay. Okay.
So the intelligent haunts stay behind for a number of reasons, as you mentioned, Christina. They oftentimes I find that they either love the place that they lived and they don't want to leave it, or they're looking for forgiveness, as we talked about in the beginning of the program. They think they can help their loved ones sometimes by staying behind, which is totally the opposite of what they can do. They can only help their loved ones in spirit, because spirits have more abilities than earthbound ghosts. Ghosts stay basically to a fixed place.
Yeah, because when you cross over, you can come back at any time. So why wouldn't you want to cross? You see what I mean?
That's exactly right, and they apparently don't know that when they choose to be an earthbound ghost.
Or they're afraid to cross for many other reasons.
That's true, and one of the reasons I found being a paranormal investigator is, and this is what I've heard from ghosts and spirits on the other side, is that oftentimes the people who are the most conservative, religious, or hardcore religious people are the ones that stay behind as ghosts, because when they die, they remember that they may have wronged somebody or lied or cheated or done something, and they're totally afraid to cross over because of what they think is on the other side.
Or judgment or something like that.
Right.
But the thing is they can't move on with their afterlife processes if they don't cross, right?
Right. So what we do as investigators is we open a portal and we bring in relatives from the other side, and we have them help us cross them over.
That's nice. That's awesome.
They come and guide them to the other side, basically.
Yeah, and let them know it's okay.
I've crossed over some pets, by the way, too.
Oh, that's awesome. So pets also stay behind, too, huh?
Some of them do. A dog that stayed behind at Sir John Soane's Museum in London. When I went to visit. The first thing I sensed when I walked in was a little dog running around, and sure enough, the docent said their little dog is still here, and so many people who work there see the dog. So.
And you helped them cross over, huh?
I didn't help him cross over. I couldn't do that. There were too many people. But I've helped other ghost dogs cross over, and to do that, by the way, you open a portal of light. And then I've actually taken a physical treat and thrown it into the light, and the dog actually goes.
That's so awesome.
Oh, by the way, Mary says you're an excellent teacher.
Well, thank you.
Now, a lot of these places that we're going to be talking about tonight, and so far that we talked about, are these in your books as well?
They are. They're in the first book, Ghosts and Spirits, which I've actually updated and revised, and I'm republishing it next week.
Right.
So it's much more organized and has more detail in it. It was my first book back in 2009, and when you write your first book, you really don't know how to write a book. So now that I've written 3 other ones, I've had some experience and I've been able to fix it.
So now you want to, I get you.
I was like, I looked at it after, I looked at it a couple of years ago. I said, oh my gosh, did I really put that out?
Aw. I bet they're great, and I have a collection of ghost books. That's all I have on my bookshelf is all real ghost books, and I definitely want to get a couple of yours and add them to my collection. I think that'd be a great piece.
Well, I have to say right here that I have never encountered a more incredible historian on the haunted than you.
Thanks.
I love reading your stuff. You
Thank
are
you
the most
so much.
incredible historian.
Thank you.
You have some awesome stuff on that page. You know that.
Thank you very much.
You need a book.
Yeah.
I know. You know, I wanted to make. It's all started by wanting to make a ghostly magazine, and I definitely in the future am going to. Even the owner of the horror channel wanted to go in and help me write a book, so I'll definitely get one out there in the future.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
All right, Roger, you want to take us into the Ford's Theater, Washington D.C.?
Yeah, I sure will. I was trying to type, and I can't type tonight, so. Anyway, this is interesting. Ford's Theater in Washington D.C. The most famous theater in the United States, President Abraham Lincoln's assassination on April 14th of 1865 by John Wilkes Booth during the play of Our American Cousin. The building was built in 1833 and was originally a house of worship. Now, see, I didn't know that. In 1861, John T. Ford bought the place and had it renovated into a theater. Then in 1862, a fire destroyed the place. It was rebuilt and then opened a year later and was called Ford's New Theater. On April 14, 1865, just 3 days after General Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse, President Lincoln was shot while enjoying a performance with his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln. So, for the listeners, could you tell us what happened here with this assassination?
Sure. John Wilkes Booth was a Southern sympathizer for the Confederate Army, and he knew the president was going to be there. So he plotted the assassination with a couple of others. And I believe it was during intermission that he snuck behind the president in the president's box on the second floor, and he fired a shot directly into the back of the president's head. And then he jumped on the stage, and he supposedly broke his leg when he did that. And he ran out the side door, got on a horse, and he and the other two went all the way down to into Southern Maryland, and to Dr. Mudd's house. Dr. Mudd is the doctor that he convinced to set his leg, and there's some hauntings there too. I've actually met Dr. Mudd as a ghost.
Wow.
So it was quite. There are a number of things going on in Ford's Theater.
Okay.
You want me to just go right into it?
Go right into it. Absolutely.
Okay. I didn't. I wanted to, give everybody a chance to jump in. This is your show.
No, this is your show. Take us to it.
All the juicy details.
Okay. Well, there have been a number of reports that there have been sightings of Abraham Lincoln in the theater, and like we mentioned with George Washington at the Montpelier Mansion, I believe that this is residual energy of the president. Because President Lincoln has been seen in his boyhood home, he's been seen walking in the White House, and ghosts typically stay fixed to one place on Earth. So it has to be a residual imprint. And one of them is likely his ghost. That as long as it interacts with you, then you can confirm that that's exactly where his ghost is. But otherwise, this would be a residual imprint.
Okay, that brings a question to mind. If a spirit, like when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, something really traumatic like that happens, that's one reason to cause a spirit to remain.
Be stuck at that location, right?
might be a reason for a recording in the history of time.
Mm-hmm. It does. It would be, and in this particular case, I think it would be more of a residual. Um, it's just an an imprint of the assassination over and over again.
Now, you said something interesting, actually. You said that ghosts or spirits, like to haunt one particular location, and the rest that they are seen in are more residual. Is that what you said? Now,
Yes.
why is that? Why wouldn't they be able to move from place to place? Why is it their ghost is only in one place? Why do they stay there? Can't they go other places? You know what I mean?
They can. It seems to be somewhat of a challenging thing whether or not they attach themselves to a living person, as I've encountered in the Inspired Ghost Tracking team, or they attach themselves to an object. I've also encountered that too. But typically they seem to stay where they're most familiar with, or even in the place where they were killed.
Okay.
I've actually run into ghosts of accident victims that didn't realize that they were dead soon after the accident, but they wind up realizing it later and then passing on.
I got you.
But we often hear a lot of stories about how George Washington slept here and slept there. He slept around a lot. And his ghost has been sighted in a number of places. So it doesn't make sense to me that he could be in 20 different places, because that's something a spirit does, not a ghost.
Yeah, now you want to tell the listeners, and I post this all the time, what's the difference between a ghost and a spirit?
Thank you for bringing that up. This is the thing that actually inspired my first book too, and I called it Ghosts and Spirits. Ghosts and Spirits, what happens after we die, in a nutshell, is the physical energies in our bodies, and it's all about energy, combined with our memories, our personalities, and our intelligence. And right after we die, we make a conscious choice. We either decide to stay here on Earth as what I call a ghost and join the energies of the cosmos or heaven, Valhalla, into the light as what I call a spirit.
Yes.
So oftentimes those two words have been interchangeable, and they're really not. They're two different things. I always tell my friends it's about location, location, location. Okay. Ghost is earthbound, spirit is crossed over. There's a difference and a similarity too with the energies they use. They both use physical energies, heat, light, water, electricity, to give us messages.
Okay.
Or to build up power and energize themselves to give messages. But they use different physical energies. And earthbound ghosts tend to use negative emotional energy. Anger, fear, depression, anxiety. So if you go into a haunted house and you feel anxiety, you're going to give them the energy to communicate. Spirits use love, faith, and hope.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense.
So those are the differences. Those are the distinct differences between ghosts, earthbound, and spirits who have crossed over.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. Going back to the theater now, I actually have a coincidence about Lincoln that I'd like to share with everybody. It's an interesting coincidence. Edwin Booth saved Abraham Lincoln's son, Robert, from serious injury or even death. The incident occurred on a train platform in New Jersey City, New Jersey. The exact date of the incident is uncertain, but it is believed to have taken place around 1865, shortly after Edwin's brother, John Wilkes Booth, assassinated President Lincoln. Now, Lincoln was waiting on a narrow, crowded platform for a train in Jersey City, New Jersey, when he lost his footing and fell beneath the slow-moving carriage of a departing train. Pulled to safety before any harm befell him, he turned to thank his rescuer and was surprised to see it was well-known actor Edwin Booth, the brother of John Wilkes. And what could be considered one of the most remarkable coincidences in history, the son of a president was rescued by the brother of that president's assassin. Isn't that wild?
Wow. That's amazing.
That's crazy.
That is why you're the queen of paranormal history.
Hey, Christina is full of some knowledge now. She digs this stuff up out of thin air.
Thank you.
I think you get some help on the other side, Christine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But let's see. According to a few witnesses, the haunting imprint of Lincoln's assassination occasionally repeats itself. Footsteps are heard rushing towards the box where Lincoln sat with his wife, followed by a gunshot and screams. One report even attests to the apparition of Mary Todd Lincoln at the railing of the box and pointing at the stage where Booth made his escape and crying out, he has killed the president. Other voices crying, murder, has also been heard. So an icy presence reported on a specific part of the stage by various actors blamed the ghost of Booth for his phenomenon. His spirit has also been hurrying across the stage, reenacting his gateway from the scene of the crime. Although Lincoln's ghost has more famously been seen, like you said, at the White House, and other sightings of his spirit in the historic theater as well, Booth's ghost had been seen running across the stage on numerous occasions, perhaps the exact area that he ran to make his escape. Now, I don't know if you guys ever see on TV the brothers there. What's that with Ghost Labs? They actually did a show on this, Lincoln and Booth, and they actually caught John Wilkes Booth's voice, which I thought was pretty cool. We'll have to YouTube that show. But I thought that was pretty cool. Now, Rob, what do you think of that the painting there, the very famous painting of Mary Todd with Abraham behind her?
Well, it's kind of haunting, really. No pun intended, but yeah, it is. It is a little bit unnerving. To me, it is.
Why is that?
I guess because I always think of the Ford Theater incident.
Okay.
And how she must have felt watching her husband, gasp.
Oh, absolutely.
What's interesting? You mentioned that that television ghost hunters captured John Wilkes Booth.
Ghost Labs
voice. I didn't know that. What's interesting is that the very first time I went in there, I encountered his ghost.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I actually wrote about that in my lessons learned book. You mentioned that there was an icy presence on part of the stage, and that makes perfect sense because we already talked about how ghosts create cold spots, and those are intelligent haunts. So those are interactive ghosts. He's also been seen hurrying across the stage. Here's what's interesting. When I first walked into the Ford's Theater, I went in actually to see, ironically, Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol about the ghosts of Christmas.
Okay.
So I walked into the gift shop, which is to the Ford's Theater has been renovated. So the gift shop is left of the Ford's Theater. Okay. It's basically where the alleyway would have been that John Wilkes Booth had a horse waiting.
Okay.
I didn't know that when I was in the gift shop. But I kept sensing a man, and he was very arrogant, and he was very haughty, and he said how proud he was of himself, and I said, "Who are you?" And he told me to look to my right, and I looked to the right, and right there was a display on the wall of all things about John Wilkes Booth.
Wow.
I thought, oh my gosh, he is here. He's really here. So I asked the people that work in the gift shop, I said, have you folks encountered a lot of weird things? What Mr. Booth is, I didn't say what Mr. Booth is telling me, I said, but what I'm understanding is that the lights go on and off, things get locked by themselves, and so forth, and other things are thrown on the floor, and things are moved around. And they said, exactly, those are the things that happen in this gift shop. So a year later, I had my friend Ruthie Larkin, who is known as the Beantown Medium from Boston, come down. I didn't tell her anything about it. So we went in and we were touring her around historic places, and she said to me, "Who is this arrogant ghost in here?" She said, "It's a man." And I said, "Turn around and look where you're standing." And sure enough, she was standing right in front of the John Wilkes Booth display items. And she said, "Oh my gosh, he is such an arrogant man.
Wow.
And he's so proud of the fact that he assassinated the president." And he was, and he still is, and he will never cross over because he is one nasty SOB.
But that makes him an intelligent haunt.
That makes him an intelligent haunt. You know, intelligent is well, in his case, it's
well, you know,
take it as it is.
Well, it makes him an intelligent ass.
Yeah, there you go.
But, you know.
Do you believe the assassination is why the theater is haunted?
Well, I certainly do. Yes, I do, because he's so boastful and so proud of being the assassin of the president, because of his sympathies at the time. Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't like him.
I don't blame you.
There are certain people that you like and don't like in life, and when people die, they maintain their same personalities.
Thank you. I was just fixing to say, if you were a butthead in life, you're going to be a butthead in life.
Yep.
Right on, Roger. And oftentimes I find too that that's why like prisons are haunted, and the ghosts are nasty.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. They maintain their personalities.
You know, and if you have a person that dies in prison who was falsely accused and they're not a bad person,
Mm-hmm.
you may run into them too, but you may run into them as more of a, as you put it earlier, a help me type deal.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's sad, but it does happen. People are falsely accused and put in prison and stay there their whole life.
Oh, absolutely.
Very sad. As long as we can cross them over, though, and give them some peace in the afterlife, that's a great thing to do.
So this assassination, it can't be a residual haunt then, or it has caused a residual haunt because they're intelligent there, right?
Well, certainly John Wilkes Booth is an intelligent haunt, but the images of President Lincoln and Mary Todd would be residual.
Would be residual, okay.
Yeah, thumbprints left behind.
Yeah.
We're learning a lot. All right, is there anything else about this, Ford's Theater before we move on, or?
Well, I think it'd be appropriate that everybody goes to see Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol about the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future.
If I had a nickel for every time I watched that movie, I could retire.
Can you believe I've never seen it?
Oh my gosh!
Never seen it?
No.
Well, watch the cartoon, Christina.
I mean, I've seen, the Scrooge, and the ghost of, but I've.
Oh, well, Scrooge is the Christmas Carol.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Then
I've
seen one version of it. Then.
There you go.
You saw the one with Bill Murray there.
Yeah, that's the one I've seen.
Oh, Scrooge.
That's Scrooge with an ED on it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one I've seen.
I will say for folks who go to the Ford's Theater that they have a beautiful museum in the basement. And they have President Lincoln's hat and his boots and several other things that are down there. And it's run by the National Park Service. It's a National Historic Site. So they do give tours in the theater, of course, when productions aren't going on. And it's well worth the time if you're in Washington, D.C. to go in there and get a tour.
Did you find anything in the basement?
The museum.
The museum.
No, I didn't find any active things in the basement.
Now, don't they have Lincoln's chair somewhere? Because I remember doing a post on Lincoln's chair. I just don't remember where it is.
I don't know where it is. It may be in the Smithsonian, which is right, a couple of blocks away.
Yeah, I remember doing a post about Lincoln's chair, and I was like, oh yeah.
That's really unique though, because there's always something in the basement.
I know, right?
I know, but Roger, think about this. When you're alive and you own a house, is the basement your favorite place?
Well, now it is, but no.
Is that where you go for quiet time?
After I got into doing actual investigations, I love basements. Something's always going on in the basement. Well, except for the computer, obviously, but. But that's the first thing you hear, right, when you hear about a haunted location. Well,
Yes.
It's the
there's a
basement.
spirit in the basement, you know, that does and says this or whatever, and it's always that case, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's why I had to ask you, did you find anything in the basement? Because there's always something in the basement.
Just the museum.
All right, awesome. All right, next we're going to talk about Thomas Wolfe House in North Carolina. Raji, you want to take us into that?
Yeah, the cemetery he is buried in is haunted, and he had a professor whose spirit still haunts the Horace Williams house. Considering Thomas Wolfe's old home is also haunted, one would be led to believe that these are more than just coincidences. Regardless, the Thomas Wolfe Memorial is indeed the home of former author Thomas Wolfe. The home is reportedly haunted by a man and a woman, with the woman being spotted in the dining room, while the man has been seen sitting in a rocking chair. The main story stems from a face in the upstairs window and the sounds of a typewriter, leaving many to believe it is actually the ghost of Wolfe himself. In other words, he's still writing books in the afterlife.
Could be.
So,
Could
can you
be.
shed some light on who Thomas Wolfe is?
Gosh, Thomas Wolfe was a very famous author in American history, and he wrote the book "Look Homeward, Angel." So everybody needs to Google that on Amazon. Look it up. Um, he actually became Asheville's pride and joy, and so they preserved his house. I was there in 2011, and I actually took a ghost tour, a ghost walk in 2011 in Asheville. And what's interesting is that I didn't know where we were. We were coming around the corner from the side of the house. The house is actually on a corner, and as we were coming around the corner, I was taking pictures of a particular window that I was drawn to. Somebody in that room. So I kept taking pictures, and sure enough, I got an orb. And that actually became the cover. That picture became the cover of my book, Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead. There's an orb
wow.
right in here.
What color was it?
It was
Just
multiple
curious.
colors. It was
Really?
multicolored. What I found about orbs, and for the folks that are listening, an orb is the most simple form a ghost can take. It's basically a round ball of light, and orbs can easily be discounted usually if they're white, because they could be a bug, a reflection, lint, dust, anything that's in the atmosphere. What I've come to find out is that an orb is more genuine. It's more genuinely an orb if there's colors or designs in it, and sometimes you'll find a face
Yeah,
in it.
because you can see faces. Yeah.
Yes. In my book, Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead, I have a chapter about a double murder investigation that I went on with Inspired Ghost Tracking, and we found a face in an orb where two women were brutally murdered. And we believe it's the face of the younger woman, and you can clearly see her eyes, her nose, her mouth, her cheek, everything in the picture in the book. So there was an orb outside of Thomas Wolfe's house, and it wasn't until the next day that we went in, and I was able to figure out who it was.
Who was it?
It was his brother.
His brother.
Thomas. We had to ask the docent, actually. I knew it was a man, but I also knew it was not Thomas Wolfe, because I didn't get a sense that he was there. I got a sense that it was someone that was related to him. And so I asked the docent, I said, did someone related to Thomas Wolfe, a male, die in this room? And she said, his brother died in the front room, where I got a picture of the orb, and that's where his brother spent his last days, and Thomas Wolfe was caring for him. So that's the man that I met, and he was an intelligent haunt. He was actually interactive in that room. I don't know if Thomas Wolfe is also in the house, but his brother was the one that was strongest for me when I was there.
Can you tell us a little bit what this house history is in our history? You know what I mean?
Uh,
Um,
well,
like, what
in
role did this house play in history? Is what I guess I was asking.
well in Asheville, of course, it was the Confederate side of the Civil War. So during the Civil War, the Confederate soldiers and generals would often take charge of people's private residences,
Right.
and they would move them out. And that happened a lot. And I'm sure it happened in this particular house as well. I know Savannah, Georgia, was famous for having their people thrown out of their houses by the Confederate Army. So that was another thing that led to a lot of unrest and discord of the energy that was felt in this house.
Sure. Um, so I guess we already did. Thomas Wolfe die in the house, or do you know who did? We already answered that. You know his brother did, but you're not sure about Thomas Wolfe
No, isn't that
himself.
odd? I don't know if he died in the house or not, but I know his brother did.
Now, if it played a lot in the war and stuff, like, wouldn't there be a lot of soldiers around, or the land itself be just have that feeling, what do you call it, like, of just dread and the horrors that it's seen? Wouldn't you think?
There would be a lot of residual energy of residual emotional energy, and I think we talked about this before we went on the air. Is that that's that's what you get when you go to places like Gettysburg, Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
and Antietam, the bloodiest battle of the Civil War
that would
in
be all
Maryland.
residual.
A lot of that's residual. There are intelligent ghosts within, but for the most part, you're actually feeling the energy that the soldiers felt, the emotional energy, like fear and dread, anxiety. Uh,
Yeah.
all of that heavy energy lingers there.
And the sad thing about that is they're refighting that battle every day.
They sure are. It would be great to go there and cross over the intelligent ones
Wouldn't
that
it?
remain.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
As I think we also talked about too, is that sometimes the energy is so intense, like I can't actually go to Gettysburg. It's like being in a stadium filled with 10,000 people, and they're all screaming at me, and they're trying to get my attention, and I can't hear one of them. Um,
Because there's
it's
so
just
much
crazy.
going on.
So much, yeah, it's so overwhelming.
Wow. I can only imagine what that would be, what that would feel like to just have that overwhelming sense of everyone wants to talk to me and I just can't fathom it, you know?
I think we're going to talk about that when we get to Pennsylvania later on in the program.
I had a friend that went to Gettysburg and actually recorded a musket shot
Oh, nice.
on a recording device, and he said it was a cannon, but you can tell the difference. You know, a cannon would have been a lot louder. It would have been, you know, this was a musket shot, but you could hear it just as plain as day.
Wow. Yeah, some of them are still fighting the war.
I bet. I bet. Okay, we're going to talk about New Hope. New Hope is a small borough town nestled along the Delaware River in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Incorporated in 1932, the town is rich in the Revolutionary War history, and George Washington is said to have led his troops through New Hope in 1778 on the way to Valley Forge. So now, before we get into the few haunted locations that we dug up here for New Hope, what can you tell us about New Hope in the Revolutionary War?
Well, originally it was known as Coryell's Ferry during the Revolutionary War. And as
Okay.
you mentioned, in November 1776, George Washington was actually retreating from the advances of Lord Cornwallis's forces, and that was in the Hudson Valley. So the Continental Army moved back through New Jersey, and it's actually believed that he crossed the Delaware River at an area just south of Coryell's Ferry in an area known as Taylorsville today. So that's the crossing that actually inspired the famous painting that we see of George Washington crossing the Delaware River.
Oh, that's wild. Okay.
That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So there was a long story short, there was a standoff between the two armies on opposite sides of the river. So, and General Cornwallis believed that the Americans would give in, that they would lose and surrender. So he made plans to return to England, and America had dealt a significant blow to the English forces. So that was a mistake, of course. And it's it's history from there, pretty much. In 1778, Washington. 2 years later, Washington moved his army back through New Hope on the way to Valley Forge, and then he went on to Yorktown, where, ironically, Cornwallis surrendered. So, a lot of history about the Revolutionary War goes through New Hope.
Okay, all right. Well, one of the locations I dug up was the Logan Inn. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but established as an inn in 1727, the Logan Inn is the oldest continuously run inn in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and one of the 5 oldest inns in the United States. However, it is not just the inn's colonial period charm that draws the visitors. Legend has it that the basement of the Logan's Inn was used to store bodies of fallen Continental soldiers during the Revolutionary War, and visitors often report seeing a spectral soldier, frequently in the inn's well-appointed tap room. Guests also report strange noises, unexplained drafts, and the strong scent of lavender perfume in room number 6, where the ghost of 2 young girls are said to linger.
See, I told you, something's always happening in the basement.
Right?
There you go. You went to Roger's favorite place. You had to write that in.
I love basements.
Oh my gosh. From what I understand, Christine and Roger, it is the oldest continuously running inn in Bucks County.
Okay.
And it is one of the 5 oldest inns in the entire country. That's pretty amazing.
Okay.
The tavern was actually established by John Wells. He was the ferry guy that would help people cross the Delaware, and he actually likely would have served General Washington at the time. So that's pretty cool. I did find information about Emily's room. Women report seeing the reflection of a man in the bathroom mirror, and Emily, I guess, is reported to be the mother of a previous owner of the inn. So there's misty shapes and translucent figures of children and pillows being yanked out from guests as they sleep. So, if you don't want to sleep, go to room 6.
Yeah, there you go. Now, can we talk about mirrors for a minute? I just always have this fear of mirrors, but do you believe that they are portals?
I think that they could be if you put 2 mirrors facing each other.
Really? That's interesting. I find that interesting.
Yeah.
I do a lot of posts about mirrors and the superstitious part of it and everything like that, and I find it fascinating.
Trap spirits, according to folklore.
Yeah.
And, if you, as you were saying, and that's one of the reasons why when a person passes, if you notice, a lot of people will cover up their mirrors.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because they don't want their loved ones to be trapped in the mirror. So,
I know my mother used to do that. My mother was Italian, and she said that the Italians used to do that. They would put a black cloth over mirrors when people died.
Yeah, so they don't get trapped, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess either that or they didn't clean the mirror when people were coming over.
Well,
I'll have to definitely do a post for everybody.
If you look in the mirror right after somebody dies in your house and you don't see your face in the mirror, you should have covered it up. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, that's a good rule right there.
I'm always afraid when I look in mirrors what I'm going to see other than me. You know what I mean? I always have that fear for some reason.
I look in the mirror and say, "Who's that old guy?"
Yeah. No. Not at all.
Wait, I look in the mirror and be like, "Geez, I got younger."
Hey, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were talking about the ghosts. I think that this particular inn is supposed to be the home of 4 ghosts.
Okay.
Did you happen to find
Well,
anything?
this is the thing. I actually had a hard time finding information about this, and that's why I was hoping that you could shed some light on it.
Okay, I'll shed some ghostly light on it for you.
Sure, thank you.
There were when you walk into the lobby of the inn, there's a large portrait of a couple, and in the portrait, there is a woman who apparently is known to have favored lavender perfume. So some guests have reported actually smelling lavender perfume when they go into the Logan Inn. I don't know who she is. I guess we'd have to take a trip there and look at the portrait and see if there's a name on it. There's, of course, as I mentioned, the Revolutionary War was pretty prevalent there. So another ghost reported seen there is a continental soldier, and they see him in the tap room. They also see him in Roger's favorite room,
The basement.
and the dining room.
And this makes him intelligent, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because he seems to be walking around and there's some cold spots associated with him. So what's interesting about this particular soldier is that it's believed that the innkeeper found the body of a soldier that was stored in the basement because the ground was too frozen to bury him.
Oh, wow.
So he's probably still looking for a proper burial, even though obviously they buried him somewhere.
Where is he? In the basement.
He's in the basement. So Roger, you have an assignment. You need to go find him and give him a proper burial.
But when you have a residual, it's usually you'll see the same thing in the same place every time, and it will not acknowledge that you're there.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so I believe that this guy is an intelligent haunt.
So, yeah, he's being seen in several places.
Now, if he didn't have a proper burial, he'd still be able to cross over, no?
He would.
Regardless of the burial or not, right?
Yeah. The only thing is that, once he has a proper burial, typically he'll have a desire then to cross over. He probably thinks that he can't cross over because
So he would need help.
He needs help. Maybe because he didn't have a proper burial, he didn't cross over.
And a lot of that is if that's something that's in your head when you're living, it stays with you after.
Correct.
So
Exactly.
if his body's laying down there in the basement, his spirit's thinking the same thing he would have thought when he was alive. When I die, I've got to be buried, with a proper Christian burial or what have you, or I can't go to the other side.
Exactly, and that goes right back to the people that have religious beliefs. If their religious beliefs don't follow, then they stay behind.
Yeah. So, now, if you're not a Christian, you're this Joe Wonder, and you don't have a religion or nothing like that. That's not going to hold you back when you go. Okay, it's not, because you're not going to be thinking about that anyway.
Right. The people that are less religious have an easier time of crossing over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, there's nothing to hold them back.
Yep.
Unless they just want to stay. And you do have spirits that do want to stay here, even though they could cross over. And different reasons for that. But
yes.
I guess it's your choice if you want to stay earthbound or cross over. If you knew you could cross over, right?
It is. Everything's a personal choice. Everything comes down to the individual. It's just like buying the car that you like versus the car that somebody else likes.
Exactly. Good point. Good way to get
the choice.
Do you want a Cadillac or do you want a Pontiac? You know what I'm saying? They make their choice if they want to stay here or if they want to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some they don't even realize that they passed, so they don't know to go on. Exactly.
And some are afraid to go on.
Yeah. The Lamp Mansion is a good example. The son didn't want to cross. He didn't want to cross over because his dad was such a butthead. He didn't want to meet him on the other side.
Oh, wow.
Because his dad built the brewery, right? And when he
Yeah.
died, of course, it went to his son who screwed it up and lost the brewery. So he didn't want to go over and meet his dad and have to put up with, being, I guess, bashed for screwing it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I was just thinking of something. It's something that you said, Rob, about, let me see if I can get my train of thought here. Oh, lost it.
We'll get you back on track.
Yeah, no, I had a question about something that you said, and I can't remember. So okay, so let's see, what's next?
I actually have one more ghost to tell you about.
Sure. Oh, go for it.
And this guy may also be an intelligent haunt because this particular ghost, it's a man, and he's wearing knee breeches, which are basically like those little pants that come down from your knee down to your ankles,
Okay.
that men used to wear around the Revolutionary War time. And he has been seen on the steps leading downstairs. And there are also heavy footsteps in the basement.
Okay.
Roger. Associated with this guy.
All right, y'all gonna pick on me the rest of the night. I see.
No, I just whenever I see the word basement, I'm gonna just highlight that. So this guy is intelligent, in my opinion, because employees have actually reported that full kegs of beer have actually fallen on them in the basement, and that lights have turned on and off. And the only way that these things can happen is if there is an intelligent haunt.
Well, that takes a lot of energy to move something. You know what I mean? Or even to manifest.
It does, and likely that there's a couple of places that an earthbound ghost will get energy from, like an inn. Number one, there's a number of people there, so that there's a lot of emotional energy. Number two, the employees that go downstairs realize that know it's haunted, so when they go down there, they have anxiety, and they're fueling that ghost.
Yeah.
Number three, it can be built on a certain type of material too.
Like limestone?
Yes, limestone, quartz, all that kind of stuff. Or there could be an underground river, anything like that.
Yes.
With energy to, And if you have a real stormy night, expect extra.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I remember that question, Rob, that you mentioned you would have more ability to do certain things in the afterlife if you were crossed over as a spirit, not as an earthbound ghost.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to mention. Why is that? Yeah, or like you said, an earthbound ghost manifests these certain ways that you just mentioned, but a spirit does it in different ways.
Yes.
You said love and light and all of that.
Those are the things, love and hope and faith.
Love and hope, yes.
Those are the things that empower spirits on the other side to come back and give signs. Spirits can do a number of things. Sometimes they do things that can defy physics. And in other words, spirits can actually be seen in multiple places at the same time, appearing to different people.
Okay.
There's been a number of records about that happening. For instance, on the anniversary of their passing or their birthday, whatever, they like to let people know they're around. Spirits come around in the three primary times: birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. And there's a reason for that. There are loved ones. And when do we usually call our loved ones? Birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays.
Don't visit your loved ones?
Yes.
You call them or visit them. If you don't like them that much, you just call them.
Could you tell us about a couple of signs that a spirit would give to somebody?
Sure. There are quite a number of signs, actually, that spirits can give. And ghosts can do similar things. Ghosts are more limited. Ghosts are limited to, like, movements, cold spots, of course, because of the physical properties. They can do more pushing, shoving. They can actually make you feel the pain of their death, how they died. Spirits can do the same thing, but spirits can also influence things in nature. they can do apports, which means an apport is actually moving a small thing from one place to another. People often find pennies or nickels or dimes or whatever after someone passes.
Yes.
If you find a coin, pick it up and look at the year, and that will give you a clue as to who it is that's trying to send you a message.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't. I mean, because I do post all the time about dimes and pennies being signs, but I never thought to look at the date.
And I can tell you a story about that, how relevant it is. But before I do, I'll tell you a couple more signs. Sometimes spirits will give us flowers that from the weirdest places. They'll make things in nature like birds and butterflies or dragonflies behave in an erratic, unusual manner. My dog Sprite did that the day after he passed.
Oh, wow.
People will often see that. And a woman I just last week said that when I told her that her dog said that he was going to send a sign from a bird, a blue, I think it was a blue jay, that and the blue jay is going to behave erratically, or maybe it was a robin. She wrote me back and she said a couple of days later, she said, this robin has come to my window every single day. I've never seen this robin before, and it just stares at me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I said, well, that's your dog letting you know that they're still around.
Yeah. But one would not really know that unless they were really told that, right? I mean, how would you know a robin sitting under my windowsill staring at me is a message from my dog? Unless...
Well, if you're thinking about your dog at the time the robin appears and acts strangely...
I gotcha.
It's a very good chance. Because one thing I learned about spirit and ghosts, there's no such thing as a coincidence.
There isn't. There is no such thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what about feathers? Does feathers play a role?
Feathers are another example of things that can be manipulated by spirit in nature. Feathers are often found. I talked to somebody who was thinking of their dog that passed or a cat that passed, and they were laying on their couch watching TV, and they happened to get up, and there was one white feather on the couch, and there was no way and nowhere that feather could have come from, and they had previously cleaned the house like earlier that day, so it was just bizarre.
That's amazing.
But coins are an amazing thing. If you'd like, I can tell you a quick story about it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And this one involved two spirits and my dog Sprite. When my husband and I made the choice to let our dog Sprite go, he was 16 and a half. He was going blind. He was going deaf. His back legs didn't work. He had kidney failure, and he had a tumor that burst in his nose.
Oh.
And we had to make the decision. So we went to the vet, and I asked my dad, Spirit, who passed. My dad passed in 2008, and our friend Ed, well, my husband's friend Ed, who passed in 1996, and I never knew him in life, but I know him in spirit. We asked both of them to come and help Sprite cross over. We also asked Buzz, my dog that passed in 2005. When we were waiting we were in the vet's office, and the vet was about to administer the shot, I felt a cold hand on my left elbow and my right elbow, and I turned around and I saw Buzz sitting on the floor.
Oh, wow.
It's a very emotional story for me, by the way.
It's okay. It's okay.
So I felt the hands of my dad and Ed on either side of me, and they confirmed that they were there. So after Sprite passed, I said to both of them, I said, Dad, Ed, please give us a sign that you did take Sprite over and that Sprite had crossed. So the next day I think it was the next day. We were walking our other dogs, and my husband found a penny, and on the penny was the year 1996. That was the year that Ed passed.
Okay.
Earlier that morning, I went out to get coffee before I went to work, and I got out of the car, and I looked down, and there was a penny, and it was dated 2008, the year my dad passed.
Oh, wow.
Those are the only two coins we found that entire day. Both of them were the years that each one of those spirits passed.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So,
no such thing as a coincidence.
No, there really isn't. There really isn't. That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Yeah, that was an awesome story.
That's in my Pets in the Afterlife book.
I definitely want to get that book. I'm definitely interested in that stuff.
That's one of many signs that Sprite and spirits, other spirits, provided to let me know that they were okay.
Sure.
So sorry, I took you away from New Hope.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. Roger, why would you like to take us into the Aaron Burr house?
Aaron Burr House, the third Vice President of the United States. Aaron Burr is primarily known for killing his rival Alexander Hamilton in a bloody duel in 1804. What is less well known is that after the duel, Burr fled to New Hope, Pennsylvania, and sought refuge in a private residence for nearly a week. In 1873, an inn was erected on the stone foundation of the private residence, and today the Aaron Burr House welcomes visitors who are eager to catch a glimpse of Burr's brooding specter. Burr's ghost seems to have been fond enough of the place that it reportedly lingers in the halls and stairways. His spirit also apparently enjoys company. It supposedly tugs on guests' clothing in an attempt to get guests to stay. Now, that's a little confusing, right? You know, because if I were to come into, well, not me, of course, I'd be like, yeah, I'll stay. But your Johnny come visitor goes in there and somebody starts yanking on his sleeve or something and he can't see him. He's not going to want to stay. He's going to want to be back. But anyway, as it is, that's what the story says. So can you tell us a little history about the Aaron Burr house and the ghost that yanks people's sleeves?
Well, first of all, I think that he's pretty bitter over the fact that he lost the duel. So,
okay, now wait a minute. I thought that was the spirit of the vice president that won the duel.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, I'm confusing them. Alexander Hamilton actually was the one that passed away. So,
yeah,
yes.
Too well in the duels. Yo, I mean,
yeah. So Aaron Burr actually he fled to New Hope after the duel.
Yeah.
And he sought refuge in a private residence. That structure was built in 1873. It's a two-story Victorian structure, and what happened with Hamilton, I think it's important to know a little bit more of the history too, is that politically they were on different sides. They were friendly adversaries until one point where Burr ran for the Senate and he defeated Hamilton's uncle. So that is actually what caused the feud between the two of them.
Because he beat his uncle in a political.
Yeah, for a Senate position.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the guy says, "You beat my uncle, so now let's have a duel so I can shoot you."
Well, I think it escalated over time, and the reason it escalated over time is that Hamilton, when his uncle was defeated, he started telling lies, and he actually successfully turned Thomas Jefferson against Aaron Burr. So then, during the election of 1800, they both apparently received the same number of votes in the Electoral College. So that vote had to be decided by the House of Representatives. And because Hamilton stirred up so much political garbage, he was successful in swaying the vote, which made Jefferson the third president. And Burr got the second second most votes, so he became vice president.
Oh wow!
That didn't sit well with Mr. Burr.
Or Hamilton.
Burr actually, and Burr was Hamilton was the one that was telling lies about Burr. So in 1804, Burr was again snubbed by his own party during his presidential run. So that's when he decided to run for the governor of New York. And once again, Hamilton couldn't let it go. He did everything he could to sink Burr's campaign. So it's like politics today. Everybody lies about things,
Oh, God.
and then everybody gets exposed. Thank God for fact checkers. They didn't have fact checkers back then, apparently.
Okay, well, I have a question. Hamilton is ruining all of Burr's supposed offices that he's running for, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how did Burr become the third vice president before the duel happened?
What I think what happened? Well, the duel was in 1804, so it was he became vice president before 1804. It was in the election. It was in the election of 1800 that he became the vice president. I think what used to happen was whenever you had two people in the same party running, the one that got the most votes would be president, and the one that got the second most votes would be vice president. I think that's how it worked. I'm not a historian. I only talk to dead people.
That's awesome.
And I forecast the weather, so I.
Well, let's ask you this. Let's ask you who you think's haunting the Aaron Burr house. Any idea?
I don't know. I don't. It could be either one of them. Only because Burr ran there. He basically ran to that house, that location, after he killed Hamilton.
Okay.
So my best guess would be that it would be Aaron Burr.
Okay.
But then again, I don't know if he died there. I don't have any information about the end of his life.
Have you been to this house before?
No.
Okay.
I walked by it.
Oh, okay. What feeling did you get when you walked by it? Anything?
There was a lot of feelings of dread throughout that
I
entire.
bet.
New Hope, Pennsylvania. I actually wrote about New Hope, Pennsylvania in a short chapter in one of my books because that particular town has so many hauntings.
Okay.
And there's a lot of bad energy there too because of the war. The Revolutionary War is fought there.
It just lingers.
It lingers, and like being in a stadium, it's like again, it's that stadium feeling, like being whenever I went to Gettysburg. I couldn't stand there. I couldn't be there very long. As soon as we crossed the line into the town, I was feeling nervous and anxious. I was sick to my stomach. There was so much bad energy going on in there, and we actually had reservations in a bed and breakfast that night in New Hope, and I had to cancel them. I said I can't stay here.
Wow, is that bad, huh?
It was that bad. So if you're medium and you're sensitive, it's like it's sensory overload for you in there. And that was before I knew how to protect myself.
Oh, sure. All right. Well, let's see. We got the Joseph Pickett house. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the Joseph Pickett is a New Hope resident ghost. Pickett was a local shopkeeper and artist whose painting Manchester Valley was posthumously hung in the New York City Museum of Modern Art. Though Pickett died in 1918, his spirit is said to linger in this home and studio. A former tenant claimed that she was startled by a man who she assumed was an intruder. When she later visited a local museum, she saw a picture of Joseph Pickett and recognized him as the man she had seen. Other tenants report hearing footsteps on the stairs, knocks on the door, and objects that have mysteriously moved. Anything you tell us about this house?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about Pickett.
Okay.
That may shed some light on some of the things about that particular house. Pickett, when he was a young man, he actually joined a carnival, and he was actually responsible for managing the shooting gallery, which I think is kind of odd. But once he married and he settled down, he opened a general store, and in the back of the store, that's where he actually put a studio together, and he started to paint whenever the business was slow. So he needed something to do. And what he typically painted was village scenes and historic events, and he actually never got any formal training at all. He was really a prolific painter, but I think there are only 4 or 5 works of his that actually still exist today.
Really? I bet you how much they must be worth a lot of money, huh?
Isn't that one hanging up on your wall?
Yeah, I know, right?
So he apparently really loved that location, and he was very proud of his paintings because he did them. That was something that he seemed to really do, that he was passionate about.
Okay.
Although he didn't really do a whole lot of them. So what I think is that there's a lot of residual energy that he imprinted on the
Okay.
paintings.
Sure.
That's just my feeling. What do you think, Roger? Oh, I caught him lighting
Well,
up.
I think that, and this is probably going to sound a little crazy, but a spirit can attach themselves to something they love, right?
Yes.
Yes. Well, a ghost. I think an earthbound ghost can.
If
A spirit that's crossed over is crossed over, I think.
he loves this painting, maybe he's attached to this painting, and that's why
Mhm.
he's still, in the area.
Yep, it very well could be. He could be still lingering. He goes wherever the painting goes. Could
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
So if you move it to a museum somewhere, he's going to be there. If you move it to, if somebody bought it and hung it in a house, he's going to be there. And that's kind of how I think a lot of times, the same thing can happen with objects like pianos or if a person really loved their piano and they played it all the time, well, after they pass, wherever that piano goes, that's where they're going to go.
I actually encountered a couple of those ghosts. One was attached to a dresser that she loved, and a gentleman was attached to a rocking chair, and he would rock a chair back and forth.
Exactly.
In an antique store.
Well, that's why you got to be careful with antiques because you never know who's coming back to the house with you.
Yeah,
and that's why I post a lot about when you go to antiques or bring things into your house from outside, you should always bless them before you bring them in your house.
Well, now, if I bought a rocking chair and I set it on my front porch and it started rocking by itself, I'd be like, oh, look, cool, and I'd take pictures and post up, hey, my ghost is rocking on the front porch.
Well, not so much blessed, but sage, something to clear it.
To clear it out.
To clear it, that's what I meant, yeah.
But then if you go out and sit on your front porch in the rocking chair, you got to be like, oops, sorry, didn't mean to sit in your lap.
Yeah, that's another reason why I actually have a hard time going in antique stores because I can sense a lot of the residual imprints that people left behind on things they loved, and again, it's too much energy in one place.
Yeah, I can't hang out in an antique store. I cannot do it. I go in one and I can be in there a few minutes and I got to go.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and there's a lot of antiques in New Hope, let me tell you that.
Oh, I love antiques.
We had at one time 3 antique stores here on our main street, and I went into each one of them, and I could only be in there a few minutes, and I'd have to go. I couldn't stay in there. Because you can feel all that energy.
Yes, you absolutely could.
I'm fascinated by antiques. I just love them so much.
Oh, I love them. I just can't be around them because of all the energy.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up to a half an hour left in the show. We have a couple locations left. So, Roger, you want to take us to the Black Bass Hotel?
Black Bass
Hotel. Yeah.
It is said that at this 1745 historic inn, George Washington was once turned away by the loyal Tory innkeeper. Therefore, this hotel proudly states George Washington did not sleep here. A ghostly pool of blood appears on the floor in the tavern, a remnant of the time when early innkeeper Old Hans was stabbed to death in a brawl. Also, a ghostly woman in white has been seen in a guest room holding a pearl-handled revolver. Why is there always a ghostly woman in white?
That's a good question.
I mean, you hear that so much, right?
Why
It's
are they
probably
always in white? Yeah.
it's probably because dyes were very expensive back then, and
Oh, they
colors
all were white.
were hard to get. So they all wore white.
Yeah.
Cheap.
Well, now every now and then you'll hear of them. In fact, I have a picture of a lady in a red ball gown outside of a cemetery out in the boonies.
Wow.
And you can see the redness in it?
Yes,
Wow.
and I thought I showed you that. Anyway, she's just like floating out there. You don't see any legs or anything, but you see the dress and you see her face, but you don't see any legs. And she's got like on, it looks like a ball gown, like of the early period.
Send that to me on Facebook. I'd love to see that.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's the only one I've seen where I can say, well, there's a lady in red. And I call her the lady in red because you always hear the lady in white.
Yeah, they are always in white. Yeah, that's a
So
great question.
why do you believe George Washington was turned away from the Black Bass Hotel?
Maybe because they were a Confederate not a Confederate sympathizer, a British sympathizer.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the only reason I could think of. And by the way, maybe that lady in red had varicose veins on her legs, and she didn't want anybody to see her.
I don't know, but you just the bottom of her dress, and it looked like one of those frilly, like, what I'm talking about, like kind of fluffed out around the bottom, like maybe a lace trim or something.
Okay.
I say this, and I may be wrong because I haven't looked at it in a little bit, but I mean, you can tell it's like the skirt area of the dress, But I mean, you can see it was like a V-neck cut tight ball gown, and you can actually see her face.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow, that's right.
Yeah.
It's kind of creepy looking though because it's sort of really pale looking, But of course, it's a ghost. So I guess it's going to be pale, but but anyway, I mean that was an awesome picture. My buddy took that, and there was 3 of us there at the cemetery, and this was actually outside. You can see the barbed wire fence at the back of the cemetery where we were standing, and she's outside the barbed wire.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
But it was
Pretty
a
cool.
trip. You didn't see her when we took that picture, but it showed up on the camera.
Now again, I had difficulty finding information about this place, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or if there's anything that you could shed about the black bass.
Yeah, there are actually a couple of things that I can share about it.
Okay.
Oh, actually, one thing I wrote down was that I did that. No wonder it is all coming back to me. I did write down that George Washington was in fact turned away because the inn's owner was loyal to the British. He was a Tory, so that's why.
He was turned away.
Yeah, that's why he was turned away. So I remember that, but I I didn't remember that he was a Tory.
Okay.
That was the exact name. There were a number of things about this inn, by the way. There were a couple of famous people that actually stayed here, like Liza Minnelli, Ethel Merman, and Marlon Brando actually even stayed there.
Oh, wow.
What they were doing in New Hope, I have no idea.
Out of all the places, right?
Out of all the places, who would know?
Yeah.
The main haunting, though, that I was able to find is the gentleman named Hans, and Hans was the owner of the Black Bass in the early 1800s. He was stabbed to death actually by a canal worker. This is when there was a canal being built nearby,
Okay.
and he's actually said to be walking around, and he's a large, burly man, and he typically is seen in the spot that he was murdered. So that's in the tavern there. Other ghosts. There's quite a number of ghosts that are in there in this place.
Really?
Canal workers. Yeah. This is one spot that I actually really walked very fast away from, because there was a lot of negative energy in there, and I couldn't handle it.
I
But
don't blame
so
you.
I wanted to find out what was going on in there. So there were a lot of men that died working on the canal, and the reason they died is because of exhaustion and disease. When you're working in a canal, there's a lot of mosquitoes. Mosquitoes bring illnesses of all different kinds of things, and of course, a number of people died. So right off the Canal Tavern, they actually made a makeshift morgue, and that's where they actually stored bodies there. Um, and they didn't pick up the bodies for a while until they got a boat to come down the Delaware River. And you can you can only imagine in the summertime how nasty that would be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So there were some canal workers that are reportedly walking around there too, as well as Hans. I'm not sure if the canal worker that killed Hans is actually walking around there. Couldn't find anything on that, but and Roger's woman in white is in there.
When you go to figure, though, I mean, there's one everywhere.
There is, and we saved one for you too, right here at the big Black Bass Hotel. What's that?
Was she in the basement?
Yeah.
No, she. That would just be heaven for you, wouldn't it?
Would. Lady in white in the basement.
A woman in white and in the basement. What a combination! No, this woman is actually seen wandering the halls of the hotel, and she actually has a revolver that's pearl handled, and what the story is that this particular woman found her husband cheating in one of the rooms, so it didn't turn out well for her husband or the other woman.
Now she's seen carrying this revolver with her in the afterlife.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Guests have actually seen her, and she's actually associated with the lavender smell. So I think we talked about lavender before.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's seen walking around, and I think she's pretty much a residual haunt, because it was a lot of emotional, stressful energy at the time, and she's only seen walking around back and forth in the corridors.
Now is it said? It's said actually that you come back and are seen as what you died in, clothing wise, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You can't change that in the afterlife. Can't.
If you're a spirit, you can. If you're a ghost, you usually come back wearing what you wore.
So if you're a spirit, you can come back in all different ages, can't you?
You can. As a matter of fact, my dad, who passed away at 79 years old, has come back to me many times in his 30s. And oftentimes what happens with a spirit is we come back at the time that we felt most comfortable or happy with our life and our appearance.
Oh.
I've heard a lot of about spirits coming back like in their 30s.
Yeah, that's typically in the 30s is typically when everybody feels the best about their lives and their appearance.
You're in between adolescence and
middle age.
Yeah, middle age. So, I guess that would be the perfect time.
Yeah, it's before we have to live on every day on a diet. Right?
I'm on a seafood diet myself.
You see food and you eat it? Is that what your seafood diet? Yeah. I'm tracking with you, Roger. I'm tracking. Oh boy.
Awesome.
So there are a couple of other things walking around in the Black Bass. All I'll say is that if you're sensitive, I would kind of avoid the Black Bass Hotel. I'm sure it's a very nice place to visit, and if you're not sensitive, check it out.
Check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, but there are other things that have been reported too, and I know that there are a couple of male entities in there. One is actually, in addition to Hans and the canal workers that were lumped into a pile their corpses were lumped into a pile and part of that inn. There's an older man with a bushy beard and a dark suit that walks around the bar area. The pewter, I guess the pewter bar is part of the bar, the main bar,
Okay.
and he's seen there too. I'm not sure who he is. He very well could be a bartender, but nobody's actually been able to get anything from him. So he may be residual. What's that?
I bet his name was Joe.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
All bartenders are called Joe. So.
Oh, they are. I haven't been to too many bars. I don't drink, so I'm going to trust you on that. And there's one other.
Sure.
I think there's one other entity that walks around there, and this is an older woman. She's actually been seen sitting in a chair, staring at a window, looking at the Delaware River, and doesn't say anything. So again, another example of a residual haunt. I think the reason that there are so many residual haunts in this particular area is because of the river, the Delaware River. As Roger mentioned, water energy is something that totally powers spirits and ghosts. And when you have a river, oftentimes you'll find a river runs through or a stream runs through a town that has a lot of haunts.
And that will have a lot of activity of non-residual.
Yes.
Usually where you have a lot of residual is where you have a high quantity of quartz and stuff like that. It just kind of absorbs, I guess, the imprint.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, running water storms, electrical storms especially, will spike activity in a well-known haunted area. The spirits are a lot more active, or the ghosts are a lot more active when they have, like, running water, and they can also use the energy from the quartz and the materials like that, electrical storms, anything like that.
Mm-hmm. And being a meteorologist, that's right up my alley. And I will tell you that a bolt of lightning is hotter than the surface of the sun.
Wow.
It's hotter than the surface.
Struck by that? People get struck by lightning? That's wow.
Yeah, well, the sun actually, in the sun's atmosphere, as you go further out, it's actually hotter than the surface. But a bolt of lightning is hotter than the surface of the sun. I think it's 11,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
When I was in the Guard, we were on a bivouac, and we were out in the woods, and there was 3 of us standing talking, and a lightning bolt actually struck the guy in the middle.
Oh, boy.
And put him on the ground.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it did kill him, but I mean, it flattened him on the ground, put him on the ground. And we were standing, I mean, almost elbow to elbow. I don't see how it didn't affect either one of us, but it didn't. And it put him on the ground, and he was unconscious for, I can't tell you how long. It just seemed like a long time to me, but I mean, he did eventually come around. He was fine, but I've never seen nothing like that in my life. That tripped me out.
Well, oftentimes it will cause cardiac arrest, or people will suffer nerve damage or something like that from being struck by lightning.
What about the white streak in your hair?
Yeah.
Is that a myth? Is that a myth?
That's a stumptail cap you wear.
I don't know. If everything that we heard about lightning was true, I would like to stand in front of what do you call it? A bunch of chemicals and be hit by lightning at the same time, so I could become the Flash.
There you go. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. But no, actually, and for everybody listening, because keep in mind, a bolt of lightning is hotter than the surface of the sun, and it can kill you, and it can cause severe third-degree burns, among other things. I've read people have their ears blown off. Actually,
wow.
as lightning tries to ground itself, toes have been blown off, fingers, all kinds of weird things happen. So never seek shelter under a tree, never, because a tree is the first thing lightning's going to hit.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah. Well, thank you.
That's weird when you think about it, though, that lightning would seek out a tree.
Well,
But
it looks for the highest thing, basically.
but yet, whenever a person grabs hold of an electrical line, what do they tell you to knock his hand loose with? A board.
I was gonna say the high voltage line. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
You use wood. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of weird.
well, wood's not the best conductor, but it will conduct electricity. I think if you take the board and you knock somebody's arm, you're not directly hitting the current. You're hitting the person that the current is going through. That's probably
What
it is.
about upwards lightning when it comes from the ground up?
Well, lightning actually does come from both. It comes from the ground and comes from the sky.
At the same
It's all a
time?
matter of charges. Yes, yeah. It's a
Huh.
matter of positive and negative charges. So,
Wow.
and you can have cloud-to-cloud lightning and cloud-to-ground lightning, and there's all kinds of different lightning.
That's wild. All right, Roger, we got 10 minutes left. You want to hit us with the last location?
We got the Benson Hammond House in Maryland, I'm assuming, right? Okay.
It is.
The Benson Hammond House dates back to around 1825, where it was home to Thomas and Nancy Benson and built on land called Addition to Timber Ridge. The Benson Hammond House is the headquarters of the Anne Arundel County Historical Society and is open to the public. The Benson Hammond House has acquired a haunted reputation, having been investigated by a number of local area paranormal groups over recent years. Reports included hearing a phantom music box playing, the sounds of children, and other unexplained happenings. The property at one time contained multiple graves that were relocated for the building of Friendship Airport. A historical society librarian who was working in the home overnight reported that she was awakened by a music box that was playing. The upper floor is considered to be very active. Now, they said they relocated some graves to build an airport.
This is never a good idea.
No, never.
A lot of times they don't relocate the bodies, they just relocate the headstones.
Yes.
And, you know, if you come and take my headstone away and leave me stuck there and build an airport on me, I'm going to be a little ticked off.
That's what they did in Salem.
Just
They moved
saying,
the headstones and left the bodies there.
Got a bunch of jets landing on me 24/7. You know, I ain't going to like it too much.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Benson Hammond House.
Did we lose him?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I was asking you what can you tell us about the Benson Hammond House?
Oh, well, I was part of an investigation that went into the Benson Hammond House with inspired ghost tracking. Excuse me. The Benson Hammond House is located in Linthicum, Maryland, and Linthicum is basically like on one side of the Baltimore-Washington International Airport, as you mentioned, the airport. It's actually preserved and gated, and there's only it's only open limited hours, but it is open to the public, so people can tour it. When we went in on the investigation, there were quite a number of things that were going on in there. On the first floor, they have a gift shop, and as soon as I went in there, I sensed an infant that was actually wearing a gown and a dress, and I kept hearing the name Amelia or Emily. It began with an EM sound. Then I saw images of a freestanding chimney with rubble around the base, and I later learned that the home had been abandoned and stripped bare by vandals. So it was pretty much decimated. So what I put together was that this infant, who is actually walking around on the first floor of the house, was showing me that the house was in really bad condition before they reconstructed it. So that was just one of several entities that were in there. There was a lot of residual energy in this home too, because this home went through a couple of different different owners. There was a sensation of extreme sadness and emotion, and one of our investigators, Rhonda, who is a lead investigator, she's a senior investigator and a historian, she was actually to the point of tears. And that was because of the residual energy that was being given off from the house. There were two other mediums with us, and they both sensed really immense sadness. So, so that was confirmed. They all three people confirmed the different levels of sadness.
Okay.
There was another ghost in there, and I saw the figure of a woman. She was dressed in black, and she was ascending the stairway. She disappeared going up the second stair, and I sensed that she was grieving like one child had died in an accident, maybe in a farming accident, and another child drowned or from some illness, or either drowned or had some illness that affected their lungs. Here's what's interesting. When I walked through there, I was actually able to channel someone in the attic, and I'm actually able to do that sometimes when I go into these investigations. I channeled a little girl, and she identified herself as Elizabeth. Now, when I was downstairs, I heard an E name, and I thought it was Emily, but she gave me her name, Elizabeth, and she was 6 years old, and she told me she had a brother, Joseph. She also told me more things about ducks on a farm and other things, and she showed me she loved purple flowers, and these are the kind of things that ghosts will come through. They mean nothing to us until we investigate them. But I also saw in my mind the adult female ghost, and I sketched a picture of her and something that was very personal to her, which was an oval brooch, and it had like a gold lace thing around the brooch. Christina, you probably know what I'm trying to talk about.
Yep,
I just can't explain it.
That's okay.
Long story short, we get down to the bottom of we get down to the first floor, the other side of the house, and I had no idea who this woman was. And we got to the last room, and in the last room, there was a giant painting of the woman who owned the house with her husband. Her name was Mary. And in the painting, she was wearing the exact same brooch that I sketched out in my book.
Wow.
It was freaky. But we were able to figure out exactly who this woman was that people have seen in this house. So that was quite an investigation. And I still have the sketch. And I wanted to take a picture of the painting. So that was one of the first episodes of when I actually was able to sketch something out to prove the ghost that haunted the place.
Okay.
So Benson Hammond House, if you're near BWI Airport in Baltimore, go check it out.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Rob and Roger. This was definitely a great show. I had fun tonight.
I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I see a doggy. Nothing like the love of a dog.
I know, right? I'm looking at mine now. She's all passed out.
Where I go.
All right, well, you're listening to Beyond the Grave Radio. We're here with Roger Belt and Rob Gutro. So want to thank everyone in chat and everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. And Monday we have Paranormal Graveyard, which will be doing Immortals. And basically, what do we got for next week? Anything good?
Hey, if Rob wants to give out links to where you can find his books, this would be a good time.
Oh, thank you, Roger. Yeah, my books are all available on Amazon.com. Just type in Gutro, Gutro, and you'll find my 4 books. Ghosts and Spirits, it's going to be republished. This is going to be the new cover. It's going to have purple on the side with the face of a ghost from the Birdcage Theater on the cover. Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead. those are both about people, and then I have Pets in the Afterlife and Pets in the Afterlife 2, if you want to find out how your dog or cat or horse or whatever domesticated pet is communicating with you.
Awesome. Now, what's your website there? The Ghosts and Spirits blog? What was that?
Ghosts and Spirits blogspot, Ghosts and Spirits Insights.blogspot.com, or you can now type in robgutro.com.
And it goes.
And
Okay.
it goes right to my blog.
Nice. That's a lot easier.
Thanks to my friend Douglas who took care of that for me. I'm totally not savvy like that, but it pays to have friends who are.
Awesome. Well, thank you both very much, and we'll see everybody next week. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.